welcome to this week's edition of the program Times Exclusive, airing on Times Network. My name is Brian Banda, thanking you for joining us tonight. My guest in this edition of the program is none other than Rafiq Hajat, a well-known social, political and human rights campaigner.
I love brilliant green on my walls. I love signal red, sweet lime, electric blue. I just love golden yellow.
You get all that and more at Rainbow Paints. Imagine a water-based paint that is water resistant. Imagine a paint that is absolutely washable to remove dirt, and it guarantees you 10,000 cleaning scrubs over its lifespan without losing its luster. There can only be one paint that does just that, and that paint is Acrylic Sheen. Get yours today at all leading hardware stores. Rainbow Paints. Peace of mind. Part of the deal.
We have seen a lot of change now. We have a new government in place. When looking back, you see how much rot was with the DPP administration. Are you surprised?
No, I'm not surprised. In fact, the indications were there right from Cashgate and before that. So this has been brewing and accumulating for over a decade. It hasn't just. It's not a phenomena that has just erupted in the last 2 years or 5 years. It has been taking root from a long time ago, but it has reached a height that is unprecedented.
Why is that so?
The system failed.
Okay. The DPP system.
The governance system.
Okay.
Failed. It's not a partisan system, it's a system of governance where the oversight function of Parliament, the monitoring bodies, the institutions that we have of governance basically did not rise to the challenge of ensuring prudence and probity in the performance of a government. All the checks and balances that were in place were basically ignored. And that has led to, it's basically like a football match where the referee sits on the sidelines and doesn't blow the whistle, no matter what happens.
Do you think President Mutharika, now out of the system and government, looking back, was aware?
To me, a captain of the ship is responsible for everything. If the engineer in the boiler room is sitting and smoking in an area he's not supposed to, and there's an explosion, the captain has to be aware of it. And so that is the onus of leadership. I think it was Eisenhower, the President of the United States, during the just post Second World War, who had a sign on his desk. It said, "The buck stops here." In other words, whatever happens in America is his responsibility. So you cannot say he was not aware.
Where did we go wrong as a country? Where did things go wrong?
I think it's every one of us is to blame.
Yeah.
Where we chose to turn a blind eye. We saw people becoming millionaires overnight. We saw them driving fancy cars. And instead of questioning them and taking them to task, instead of querying why the Anti-Corruption Bureau was being muzzled, instead of querying why they did not have the power to prosecute, instead of questioning a situation, we, in typical Malawian fashion, we stood by and clapped hands, and gave people like that respect because of the money that they had. It's a short-term respect, but as you can see,
it's a short-term respect, yeah.
But that is unfortunately human nature. It's not just Malawian nature, where people don't say what they think. on their faces, they will show you a different face, but inside they'll be thinking something else. And we chose to turn a blind eye and not hold government to account.
Yeah, but there was HRDC. The media has been vibrant. The judiciary doing a terrific job. When you say we didn't raise an alarm, were those demonstrations not enough?
These demonstrations have occurred only in the past 2 years.
Yeah.
And in the past, we have not been that effective. If you take our demonstrations of 2011, July 20th, 2011, where we were demanding government accountability in delivery of essential services, the government of the day, the late President Bingu wa Mutharika, ordered the police to shoot to kill. And they slaughtered 24 Malawians, unarmed Malawians, at that time. They then proceeded to separate and divide and rule civil society, and they neutralized a movement.
Yeah.
So I would give all credit to the HRDC for withstanding that kind of pressure. I can imagine what kind of pressure they were under. But suffice it to say that in the past we've not managed to gain that kind of momentum that HRDC had. And the reason they managed to get that momentum was people had had enough.
Okay.
And they joined in droves.
Okay.
And I think the Jane Ansah spectacle and the elections of 2019 were the flashpoint where people just said enough is enough. And they rose to the challenge. And that was a manifestation of people power that no government can withstand. And the proof is there plain to see, for everyone to see.
What makes a government to fail?
In the terms, or in the words of my brother, colleague, and my most respected friend, Mordecai Msisha, Senior Counsel, in the march that we held some weeks ago at the courtroom in front of the courthouse, he said, read the Constitution, follow the Constitution. It will tell you whether you are going wrong or right.
Yeah.
And right from the word go, after we wrote the Constitution in 1994, 95, actually in 95, there has been a determined attempt by political elites to undermine and neutralize the effects of that Constitution. So the First Amendment was against the recall provision. That was Amendment number 1, where MPs actually amended that recall provision so that the people cannot demand accountability from the MP. It's as simple as that. It shows you, and throughout the decades since then, there's been a short-term vision which led to the trimming of various parts of the Constitution, such as the abrogation of the Senate, which was totally illegal. The power of the president to appoint MPs as ministers in a presidential system of governance, it doesn't work because you are blurring the lines between the executive and the legislature.
Yeah.
So if you add all of this up, you basically, I don't like to use the term, but you basically castrated the Constitution.
Okay.
And so I would say, return to the Constitution, respect the Constitution, let the Constitution be taught at schools as part of the curriculum so people understand what it's all about. And then you will find that there will be respect for the Constitution and the rule of law. At the moment, in your terms, which you spoke to me about, we've been having a free-for-all.
How would you describe President Mutharika? He's out of government now. Others have said that he was a good man surrounded by bad people. Does that hold?
For me, no, it doesn't, because if you take on the mantle of leadership, you have taken on a responsibility.
Yeah.
And you cannot now blame it on those around you, because who selected those around you? You selected them. You agreed to work with them. Further, being a professor of law who was taught in the United States at the University of Columbia, he would be one person I would expect to really understand what the Constitution is and how it should work and the dynamics of the Constitution. So in fact, you can excuse somebody who's totally ignorant, but you cannot excuse somebody who is fully aware and allows things to happen. That is actually a huge failure on his part. So I would say his performance has been really disappointing.
Considering where he's coming from as a law professor and somebody who lived in the US for a long time.
Absolutely. He cannot plead ignorance. That is no defense in the law. And he was not ignorant. The recent findings of the cement scam that we're talking about, where his TPIN was used to clear cement duty-free, billions of kwacha. Can you tell me he didn't know?
What if he says he didn't know?
Right? How does somebody use your TPIN? Can I use your TPIN to clear something with the MRA and you not know? Ready?
Yeah, but what if he says?
No, the point is, I'm asking you a question. Can I use your TPIN?
No, certainly.
Don't you think the MRA would inform you? That Hajat is using your TPIN to evade tax? They wouldn't inform you?
They would.
So it shows you that you would know, and so he must have known, because it's not a small thing; it's a huge amount of money. So it's not insignificant. But then there's a body of evidence that is coming out that shows that he was aware.
Like what? Which evidence?
Well, there's the cement thing is one. There's the Zamir Karim thing, where that was came out, the supplying of food to the police. He was given a payment of, was it 140 million? Or
145 million.
There you go. He didn't know. Excuse me?
I'm listening.
So, I would say to you that perhaps we are being a little bit too kind to say, he didn't know, and let it go. No. You have to take responsibility for your actions or the omissions thereof.
That's right, Yeah, that's right.
End of story.
We have a new government in place.
Yes.
Your thoughts?
Okay. My thoughts are, it's early days. It's been barely 2 weeks. They have an extremely steep mountain to climb. Huge challenge to unravel the deeds of the past and come up with the findings, take action, and recoup the losses that have been incurred by the nation as a whole. It's a momentous challenge, massive undertaking. So I would say that the first steps have been commendable. The audit of the MRA, commendable. The condition that any transfers of land or property or motor vehicles needs to be cleared by the ACB. They've taken measures and they've hit the ground running. I've attended the conference with the Vice President, met with the private sector. It was very impressive. The vision is very impressive. We want to clean house. We want to put Malawi back on track. These things cannot be done overnight. There will be a step-by-step approach. But overall, I would say the rule of law must be followed. Otherwise, you will have mob justice. And how you do that is now the challenge. To gather evidence which is acceptable in court and can lead to a conviction, and to do this all within the limits of the law, I think is a major challenge. But there are two ways also of looking at this. One is you follow the money. In other words, if there's been a dubious transaction, you follow it from inception to fruition. The other element is where you do an assessment of people's lifestyle. So, if I have built a massive a palace, and I'm driving a Land Cruiser, and I'm wearing $1,000 suit, okay, you question, where did you get the money from? Right, and then you work backwards to say, okay, you've got this. Now let's track it. How much tax do you pay? Let's look at your bank accounts. How did this money come in here? You used to have 100 kwacha, and now you got 100 million kwacha. What happened? And then you find that the two tracks of investigation meet in the middle.
Yeah.
And that then you take action.
When people call that witch hunting.
Well, as the Vice President stated, you can accuse me of doing a witch hunt, but you should only be scared if you're a witch. Okay? If you're not a witch, you have nothing to fear. So there's another way of looking at it. But again, like I say, the term witch hunt came from the Middle Ages, when you had the Spanish Inquisition in Europe, where there was a religious fervor, and they used to accuse elderly women who were a little bit strange, who had some defect or something, like a mole on the cheek or something. They would accuse them of being witches. And then they would tie them to a seat and dunk them in the water. If you don't drown, you're a witch, and you'll burn at the stake. If you do drown, well, you are not a witch, but you're dead anyway, right? So that's why I always say that the rule of law, due process must be followed to avoid affecting the innocent. People who are not guilty can be dragged into the net, but if they can prove that this is how I got the money, this is what I've done, they should be released.
You are a Malawian.
I am.
Of an Indian origin.
Yes.
I'm asking this question because most of the problems that the previous administration faced is emanating from Indians.
It's the visible part of it. Okay.
Because I'm asking this question because you are one of them, a genuine Malawian. I know you, but how do you describe the Indians that have been involved in these activities of corruption? What is the problem?
Okay.
Maybe you understand it better because you are probably one of them. Not in that context.
Thank you. Because I would like to state on record for the entire nation, I don't own a property, actually. Okay, so, and if you look at my bank balance, I think you'll laugh. And if you look at the antics of a few, and it affects me because we happen to share the same color, which is an accident of birth. I think it's most unfortunate. Sorry, what tribe are you, Brian?
We don't want to go there.
No, you called me Indian, so I need to know.
No, I said you are a Malawian of an Indian origin.
Right. So are you a Malawian of Lomwe origin, or Malawian of Yao origin, or Malawian...
Do you want to answer my question?
I will answer. I will answer. So what I'm trying to tell you is... So you have got, I would say to you, greed knows no color. Corruption knows no color. And the Asians who are involved in this in these shenanigans become visible because of the color that they have. They become prominent and they basically flaunt their wealth. But it's across the board. You have heard of black businessmen who are involved in huge amounts. I don't want to take names, but we know them. There are certain prominent ones. All I would say to you is that it takes two to tango.
Yeah.
There's a giver and there's a receiver. And unfortunately, the most prominent ones that are coming out happen to be of a certain race or certain ethnic origin. I would say to you that whoever has done this has been guilty of not just a crime, but a crime against humanity.
Okay.
For instance, if I get a tender to supply goods for a medical project, like let's say COVID, and I charged 1,000% over and above. What that means is that instead of getting 100 syringes, you would get 10 syringes, which means 90 people will not get the treatment that they need.
Yeah.
So I'm actually committing murder. And I believe that the full weight of the law must be applied without regard to race, creed, gender, or nationality. Whoever has committed a crime must pay the penalty.
Let's take a break. We'll be back with you in a moment. In case you're just joining us, this is Times exclusive airing on Times Network. I'm joined by Rafiq Hajat, a well-known human rights activist and a social and political commentator. We'll take a short break. We'll be back in a moment.
I love brilliant green on my walls. I love signal red, sweet lime, electric blue. I just love golden yellow.
You get all that and more at Rainbow Paints. Imagine a water-based paint that is water resistant. Imagine a paint that is absolutely washable to remove dirt. And it guarantees you 10,000 cleaning scrubs over its lifespan without losing its luster. There can only be one paint that does just that, and that paint is Acrylic Sheen. Get yours today at all leading hardware stores. Rainbow Paints. Peace of mind. Part of the deal.
This is this week's edition of Times Exclusive. I'm joined by Rafiq Hajat, social and human rights defender. We are having a candid discussion here on the events that are unfolding in the country. What a time to be alive, Rafiq.
Marvelous. Marvelous.
What a time to be alive.
Absolutely.
So let's just continue with the Asian aspect of our discussion. What do they want?
What do who want?
Yeah.
What do these Asians want?
Yeah.
The most basic thing, greed. I think it was Aristotle who said man is an insatiable animal. And that is actually the basis of all economic activity. And after a while, I guess, it becomes a game of numbers. How far can you go? It's like a game of Monopoly. How much money can you make? And you beat everybody else on the board. In the end, it's no longer the money. It's basically about how far can you go, how far can you push the envelope. And the other thing is that money is often linked with power.
Okay.
And amassing a certain amount of money gives you access to corridors of power. That exists. There's a dynamic between big business and government that has always been there all over the world. And I think it's that dynamic that attracts a lot of business people. At the end, I think what you're talking about is a very fundamental human aspiration of getting higher and higher and higher and higher, more and more and more and more. And it is very few people who can resist that temptation.
So, in case the President and the Vice President are watching us tonight,
Yes.
what advice would you give them on how they should handle such kind of people?
Okay. I would say to them I would give them a line that comes out of the Trojan Wars, the ancient Greek saga, in which the Greeks laid siege to the city of Troy, and they could not break through, and they spent months sitting on the beach. And one day they built a wooden horse and put soldiers in the horse.
Oh, yeah?
And the ships then left, and the Trojans thought, "Oh, we have won, we have won." And they thought the horse was a gift.
Okay.
They dragged it into their city, and at night the soldiers came out and slaughtered the entire city.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. So I would give them, and there's a saying, beware Greeks bearing gifts, that comes from that time.
Beware of Greeks bearing gifts. Yeah.
And I would amend that to beware of businessmen bearing gifts. Because those same businessmen were probably responsible for the downfall of the previous government and the rot that you see within.
Yeah.
And it's those same rotten eggs. So if you put rotten eggs or rotten tomatoes in a basket with clean tomatoes, what happens? All the other tomatoes get rotten too.
Yeah.
And that is the rot that you have to guard against. So beware of businessmen giving gifts, because those businessmen didn't want to know you a few years ago.
That's right, yeah.
And now they're coming smiling and backpatting and giving gifts. I would keep those people at arm's length. I would also ensure that everything is done according to the law in a transparent and accountable manner. I would implement the Access to Information Act rigorously.
Yeah.
The Declaration of Assets. It would be refreshing to see the President and the Vice declaring their assets, unlike previous administrations. And I would ensure that the conditions of the Public Procurement Act are strengthened. So in other words, use the legislation that is in place but has been pushed to the sidelines.
Yeah.
Implement it rigorously. And there you will find a change occurring automatically. That would be my advice.
We have now a new cabinet in place. I wanted to get your reflections on the cabinet.
A lot has been said about this cabinet.
Yeah.
People are very disappointed. They feel that it gives mixed signals. I look at it a little bit more philosophically, because being a student of politics and political science, I look at it as political pragmatism.
Political pragmatism.
Pragmatism.
Yeah.
It is a dynamic where people have supported you and who have, during your time or your quest or your campaign, this is now a time to say thank you. So this, in short, I would term this as a thank you cabinet. And there are certain personalities there who have had checkered pasts in previous administrations. I think it is, to me, I'm prepared to give them all a chance to perform, because it is not the individual who bears the full brunt. It is also the system around that individual that either permits or does not permit that individual to transgress. And so remember, every ministry, for example, is not just the minister. You have the PS, you have an army of civil servants, right from the top to the cleaner at the bottom, who are part of that ministry. And I think it is up to the rules and regulations that are in place to be implemented rigorously to ensure that everybody performs to the required degree. Parliament has got oversight function, if they can exercise that, to ensure that adherence to the budget is in place. So, in short, I would say that it's early days. I think in 3 months' time we may see a different picture. And I'm prepared to give this new government that has become such an object of admiration throughout the world, I'm prepared to give them a chance.
When you look at how things are happening in the country, we are not poor.
No.
But why are we poor?
Let's just say that
we are rated one of the poorest countries on earth.
Well, I would argue against those statistics because I've always said Malawi is not poor.
Yeah.
But our mindset is poor. We have great natural wealth. We have a body of water that is, I think, the 6th largest lake in the world, and it's fresh water. You've got over 1 billion people who don't have access to clean potable water anywhere in the world. So we have great treasure, but perhaps we do not appreciate the treasure for what it really is. And instead of nurturing that lake and utilizing it to deliver, in South Africa, for example, in Johannesburg, you now, because of the mining dumps, the water has been tainted by acid. And so if you take water from the from the tap, it is likely to be tainted. We could be supplying South Africa with clean potable water from Lake Malawi.
Yeah, it's possible.
It is possible. The other thing is, for our major crop, tobacco, is become a pariah in the world because of the anti-smoking lobby and the health risks. But then there's another crop which is chamba, marijuana, which is now is hailed all over the world for its healing properties. CBD oil it's become legitimized in many countries in the West. We should be looking at that instead of adopting the colonial mindset that chamba is bad. No crop is entirely bad.
Have you tested it?
Oh yeah. I use CBD oil. I've been using it for 3 years now.
Okay. What about smoking?
Smoking in my youth.
That's being honest enough, isn't it?
Transparency. You have to practice.
So you want to tell our viewers
Yes.
that you have smoked the chamba?
Oh yes. And I would say to you, if you say no, I would start doubting your transparency.
No, not even once.
All right,
not even once. Yeah.
Well, in that case, it's not too late for you.
To start smoking chamba.
There's nothing wrong with it. If you drink alcohol, then there's actually chamba is actually far more beneficial than alcohol. It doesn't have the bad effects of alcohol.
I have the impression that you are still smoking, Rafiq.
No.
No?
I haven't smoked chamba for over 20 years.
Okay. So you took it in your youth days.
That is correct.
So the point is, we just digressed a bit, but the point is we can make money out of chamba.
Well, let me put it to you this way.
Yeah.
For a kilo of tobacco, we are getting less than $1. For a kilo of chamba, or for medical purposes, CBD oil, you would make $5,000. So, do your mathematics. In one crop, we would pull ourselves out of the negative GDP, and we could actually say goodbye to the donors in one crop.
Yeah.
It needs to be, we have to think out of the box.
Yeah.
So no, Malawi is not poor. We have failed to utilize our potential.
Is Malawi today in safe hands?
That remains to be seen.
Okay.
It also is not just the safe hands that you are talking about, I assume, is the government.
Yeah.
It is also the role of the people. You have the media, which has done an incredible job over the last 2 years. You have the courts, You have civil society that has now come together and is stronger than ever. So I would say that you have now a balance of power.
Yeah.
And I think Malawi is probably today in safer hands than it has ever been in the past.
So we are not going to see demonstrations and all these protests we saw in the era of Peter.
Early days, but certainly I wouldn't rule it out.
Okay.
Because when civil society sees something wrong, they should feel free to demonstrate.
Mm-hmm.
You have seen the power of demonstrations. And I take you back to the state president, His Excellency Lazarus Chakwera's speech, where he says, we want a government that is responsive.
Yeah.
We want a government that listens, that does not shout.
Yeah.
If he practices what he preaches, and I know he's a great preacher, then I think we will not have this issue.
What other areas of concern should the new administration be careful about? Or to areas to avoid?
No, I would say there's no area to avoid.
Okay.
Because the role of government is to tackle all challenges confronting a country.
Okay.
I would say the area of poverty eradication is a huge one. Food sustainability, huge one. And again, does it make sense? We've got voluminous amounts of fresh water. We've got fertile land, and people starve.
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. What is the problem? Why haven't we got irrigation? What is stopping us from utilizing systems that they use in Egypt, for example, where they've irrigated from the Nile for centuries?
Yeah.
It would have been a desert otherwise.
That's right, yeah.
So it needs, I think, a hands-on approach. It needs vision. And I think critical, especially in the population of Malawi, the youth is a great. We do not utilize it properly. You have to provide opportunities for the youth. Education is vital for any country. If you're talking about future growth, laying the foundation. So I think the challenges are massive, but with the right approach and the right trajectory, we can probably rise to become the envy of Africa, if not the world.
Looking at how the relationship between the president and his deputy has been in the past, are you optimistic, Rafiq, that Dr. Lazarus Chakwera will last with his vice president? And what causes those divisions?
Okay, in the past, I think there is also another saying that I will tell you.
Yeah.
That the vice president is closer to the president than his heartbeat.
Okay.
In other words, there's always this fear that if something happens to me, you're going to take over.
Okay.
In other words, you are waiting in the wings.
Yeah.
And I think it's never comfortable to know that there's somebody waiting for you to kick the bucket.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that antipathy and power is never a thing that is lightly shared. And I do believe that the role of the vice president is not that clearly defined.
Okay.
And therefore it's very much up to the discretion of the president to say, you perform this role or you do this ceremonial role. And I think by giving the vice president that portfolio of public reform and economic planning and development, it's already a step in the right direction because he's got a definite role.
Yeah.
He's performing and
He's busy.
he's busy.
Yeah.
Which then means that you can get on with your job. And I believe that this has got the ingredients to last, yes.
So you are optimistic?
I am optimistic. Look, I prefer to give them the benefit of the doubt because we've had a new beginning.
Yeah.
And it's the first time that an alliance has actually taken power in Malawi.
Why has the past pair of the presidency not worked?
Well, firstly, they came from the same party. All right?
Yeah.
And therefore, there was always that struggle for power. And then there was also this fear of being replaced by the vice if something happened. And perhaps there was also another agenda to say that now this person is blocking my aspirations to put my team in place, or the succession is interfering with my ideas of who should succeed me. So this is where it all comes in. It's all about I would put it in short terms, it was the dynamics of power.
After all is said and done, are you optimistic about this country and what it can achieve?
I love Malawi. And when you, for example, when you love a woman, you believe she is the most beautiful thing in the world.
Yeah.
And you would do anything for her.
Yeah.
And that is my love for Malawi. So am I optimistic? Hell yeah. Malawi is the best country in the world. And if it realizes its potential, you will see I'm absolutely right. So I believe that yes, Malawi has a future. And I believe that if we walk the talk and we play our cards right, we will reach that future.
What should we do with people that have plundered public resources?
We should take them to task. I would actually say that the laws, whatever they are, I would double the penalties.
Double the penalties?
I would double the penalty, or even triple the penalty.
Triple the penalties of it?
I would, and I would make sure that these people should be reduced to pata-pata. They've risen from pata-pata to Pajero.
Yeah.
They should be reduced back to pata-pata.
Okay.
All right. Their assets should be taken by the state. The money is realized and used for development projects to benefit the people of Malawi.
Your last thoughts for tonight?
I'm reminded of the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
And I know that Dr. Chakwera is a preacher, so I will take the liberty to recite a line from the Lord's Prayer for the government.
And what does it say?
It says, lead us not into temptation and deliver us from evil, corruption. Amen.
Rafiq Hajat, social and political commentator as well as a human rights defender. Quite intriguing, I must say, hearing you talk tonight. After a long time.
The pleasure is mine. You bring out the worst in me.
Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Well, on that note, we conclude this week's edition of the program Times Exclusive. In this edition, I was joined by a well-known social and political commentator as well as a human rights defender, Rafiq Hajat. My name is Brian Banda. Until next time, it's goodbye.